holding a news conference on the state's response to the Governor Mike DeWine holding a news conference on the state's response to the coronavirus. Hey, let's listen in.
Bill sent me a tweet that he just saw from one of his former runners. Bill is a coach at Thomas Worthington. Former runner of his tweeted this. Runner's now a senior in college, and of course his track and field career was ended abruptly, as so many other athletes saw the end of their career, and certainly at least the end of their season. Now, this young man is home now. This is what he tweeted. My fellow college kids that are home, let's love on our family and friends that we have not been around in a while. Let's take care of our communities we grew up in. The opportunities to do these things is really a blessing. Yes, there are lots of scary and tough things happening right now, but that just means loving others makes an even bigger impact right now. Let's do special things. I love the attitude. It's the attitude I'm seeing from so many of my fellow Ohioans. So, good afternoon. Good to be with all of you again. Let me start with child care. We talked a little bit about child care yesterday, and I wanted to make sure that I clarified exactly what is going on. Beginning Thursday, March 26, child care providers must have a temporary child care license. And I talked about this yesterday. The big change really is that we are taking the number of kids down dramatically. No matter what age, it cannot be more than 6 children per room. That is obviously a safety issue, something that is very, very important, and that I felt very, very strongly about. So I know a number of the daycare centers have already applied and received their licenses. Anyone who is not, they can go up on jfs.ohio.gov/CDC. That's jfs.ohio.gov/CDC. We are prioritizing these slots. Again, this is a time of national and state emergency. We must reserve these slots for people who are directly involved in healthcare or first responders. So these families will be prioritized. Other families, if any slots remain open, other families then could apply. Priority will go to the families of healthcare workers, to the families of first responders, hospital and clinic staff, pharmacy staff, police, fire, EMT, children's service workers, adult protection workers, developmental disability aides, mental health counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, nursing home workers, elder care workers, home health care workers, pharmacy staff, and dentists. So that should give people a general idea of who is included and who has the priority. Again, this is a time of emergency. We felt it was very important to condense the number of kids in these settings. There are other rules and regulations that these licenses require now that the nursing home or the daycare centers must follow. Beyond those slots, if there are more slots left, then those will be open to other families. Parents can enroll now. And a list of all licensed facilities you can see at the same spot, jfs.ohio.gov/CDC, jfs.ohio.gov/CDC. And that's a list of those that have been granted these, the daycare centers that have been granted these special licenses. Let me talk now about state finances. The state legislature is coming back. We look forward to working with them this week. And I just want to say to all my friends in the state legislature, thank you. You all have been great. You've kept me informed of what's going on in your districts. You've given us ideas, suggestions, and we just appreciate that relationship, Democrat and Republican. This is across the board. Everyone is, as I've said, everyone is in this together. So thank you to each and every one of you. We welcome you back and look forward to seeing you this week. You know, we know as we're all seeing activity, commercial activity is slowing down dramatically across the state of Ohio, and we knew this is certainly what would happen. One of the consequences of that, of course, is going to be that state revenues are going to go down dramatically. And it's important, as governor, that I take action now. We should not wait. We have to take action now. And so today I am ordering the following. I'm ordering an immediate hiring freeze in state government. For all of these, the only exception will be those who are directly involved in fighting the coronavirus, and for anything that we need to do that. That obviously takes priority. But everything else, any other positions, there is a hiring freeze in effect now. In addition, the freeze in travel that we already put on, that of course will continue. There will be now a freeze on new contract services, and that goes into effect right now. All members of the cabinet, I'm having a conference call with members of the cabinet at 4 o'clock today. We've already instructed each one of them to look for cuts that they can make immediately in their budgets and in their spending. We're looking at cuts of up to 20%. Again, some of the departments, because of the nature of the work, will not be able to do that, but many can. And so we're looking to the departments to start coming together with a list of things that can be cut. We have also pulled back requests to the State Controlling Board to spend money on a variety of different projects. The earlier we start slowing down the spending, the more impact, obviously, it's going to have. And so we are doing that right now. Let me talk for a moment, and I know Dr. Acton will talk about the stay-at-home order. That stay-at-home order, of course, goes into effect at 11:59 tonight. And as we've talked about in the past, it is basically what we've been asking all Ohioans to do for the last few weeks, and that is stay at home, only go out for essential trips. You certainly can go out to get food, groceries, go to the pharmacist, go to the doctor. These are essential things that you will need to do, of course. But the goal, again, is to keep that distance from people. So very, very important. I know businesses are looking at the list that we put out yesterday and the guidance that we put out to see whether or not they can be open or closed. If you fall under an exception, then certainly, and you're an essential service, then certainly you can, in fact, stay open. If you're in the supply chain for an essential service, you obviously can stay open as well. If you do not fall under that category of essential services, essential production, or not, and you're not in that supply chain, then of course you will have to close at 11:59 tonight. Let me now turn to Dr. Acton, who will give you a report in regard to where we are today. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'd like to begin, as I always do, with our numbers. At this moment, earlier today when we finalized our statistics at 2, we had 442 cases as I've said all along, we are very limited in our testing right now. We do have many pending testing kits that are at private labs, but we do know our Starlight from the past right now has 442 cases in Ohio with an onset of February 7th to as recently as March 23rd. Our age range at this point is from less than 1 year. We classify all infants as less than 1 year to as old as 93 years of age with a median age of 52. We have 104 hospitalized and 6 deaths to report. We have others that are under investigation. I say that because I know often you're hearing things in the media at a local level before things are confirmed in our state system. So I just want to acknowledge that even my statistics I give you are shot in time. They're not what's happening hour to hour. We have 46 of our counties reporting cases and community spread at this point, and we have numerous clusters that are under investigation. I want to talk about a couple things today. First of all, I do want to talk to our nursing home colleagues out there. I've had the good fortune of talking to some of the nursing homes. I'm hearing amazing stories from the front lines of folks doing really incredible acts of courage and kindness, from people coming by and visiting and doing things in the windows that have really lifted the spirits of the staff inside. We have, in some of these clusters, over 70-some people involved, so that's a number of staff, so there are less staff, and those staff are working tirelessly to really take care of those residents. And I've spoken to some of you on the phone. I've said all along, all the social media. This isn't about me or anyone. It is about all these heroes that we're hearing about on the front lines every day. And certainly the folks in our nursing homes are just doing a heroic job. And my team back at the EOC is supporting them as they guidance through the decisions they're making. So I just want to acknowledge that. I want to say something to our hospitals. Thank you again. We're working with you tirelessly. Starting tomorrow, we're going to be doing more data explanations of what our capacity is within our hospital system. You see that happening in some of the states who are ahead of us. We're going to start giving you some of those daily numbers and graphics. Our hospitals have been hard at work creating a system and getting that data out with us. So stay tuned. But a very important thing to our hospitals. We're doing some testing in-house. We're doing some through private labs. Those private labs are lagging quite a bit. So we really need all our hospitals to report ASAP their data to the Ohio Department of Health and the CDC. We have to know the results of those tests as they occur. It really helps us do our work a lot better. To our primary care docs and other practitioners out there, we're going to be giving new guidance soon. But I want you to think about treating this virus, most of whom the folks will be treating on an outpatient basis. I want you to really take advantage of the telemedicine and flexibility that my great colleagues have created for you. What we want to do is take care of that 80% of outpatients the same way we would take care of stroke and MI. We have to here on the fly create a system of timing is everything. The same way that every minute matters. That is true for treating coronavirus. So we want you to do a great case history. If there's anyone at home sick in the household or the individual sick, so don't just ask about the person. Ask about everyone in their household. Anyone sick, needs isolated, and folks exposed in that household will be quarantined immediately. You don't need a test to do that. Treat it the same way. We got to get in the same rhythm. You go in an ER and in 10 minutes you have to have done an EKG. At home, the second a patient reaches out to you, even without a test, do that history. Get them in isolation and quarantine at home. Tell them what to look for worsening symptoms. And keep in close contact by phone or through telemedicine tools. Everything we can do without having face-to-face is important. Because we now know that some of the greatest spread is coming in our nursing homes and hospitals and in our visits visit, we're keeping, on short PPE. We know that we can have potentially a provider going to multiple nursing homes, going to the hospital, and that has been a source of spread. We're learning all around the country. But then the more you can keep patients at home and not in your waiting room, and conserve that PPE, the better. So that brings me to the next thing, our PPE. My team for the media is putting together some numbers of the PPE. We have a very limited supply we've received federally, and we have a small stash that we had here in our I should say cash. I always want to say cash is the formal term. Here in our state. We are getting that out to our local health departments today. We'll give you more on that. We're saving 20% back, but everything we have is going out today so that we can arm folks on the front line. In the meantime, we're waiting federal shipments of more PPE, which we need desperately. And our businesses here in Ohio are starting production and working on ways that we can create our own. We've got to get out what we have right now. Local health departments, I spoke with you all on the phone late last evening. We're getting that to you. But I have to tell you, don't be surprised. We're talking small boxes. We're not talking truckloads of PPE. That is the truth. That is reality. I will share those numbers with the media. I don't have them on me. We're getting everything we have except a very small amount. We're holding back for some of the clusters and really cute situations. The game of all of this, folks, and it's so important. I'll go back to our curve. We are clearly moving up our curve. And you're hearing a lot in the media right now. Different people who do sort of the modeling that we've been using as our guidance. And I want to talk very specifically about the work done by David Katz, New York Times editorial yesterday. So it's really important for folks out there doing this modeling to talk to those of us on the front line. There's a world of what is ideal, and if we had time to build it, and then there's a reality of what's happening on the front lines. We are in a situation in the short term where we have to do everything in our power to get people to stay at home. We have absolutely got to slow the spread, which we can only do by really great contact investigation and testing, which we have very limited supplies of, and by keeping people doing social distancing. The lockdown that you're hearing about, that is going on, which is really our stay-at-home order, is crucial in these next few weeks. There will be phases to this. But when you look at where we are in states right now, we've got to stay home. While we build up the other side of the equation. Stop transmitting. Stop spread. Build hospital capacity. We know that we have an extensive shortage of that, and we're working tirelessly on getting supplies to our hospitals, getting new personnel out of retirement, building up our personnel, and literally building hospitals and beds. That is the equation. That is the playbook in the war right now. There's a false equivalency about every one of these decisions is either economics. They're both. Inextricably linked. And so the things that Dr. Katz is talking about are crucial pieces of a puzzle, as well as learning from some of the apps, from technology, the blood testing that is available in other countries like Asia, like Singapore and South Korea. But those are not apples to oranges. It is apples to oranges. It is not equivalencies of where we are now on the ground. We are slowing it down and shutting it down for a short period of time while we build that capacity. And use those techniques you're hearing about. Herd immunity, yes. Some of us will get sick, and when we're on the other side of it, we have got to get those folks back to work. So all of that is the next stage of a response. It is the next stage in how next stage and how we will eventually exit out of this. But the truth is, and people at home, please hear this. The most important we can all do right now is stay at home. Unless you are absolutely essential to those lifelines of water, the transportation that supports that, our healthcare services, our frontline workers. That is our tool chest right now in the real world that we are living in. And again, I implore, and many of us are working, I'm talking to scientists, love to talk to Dr. Katz and others. Let's use those things like herd immunity to help us unwind this. Let's use, once we have all the extensive testing and to trace who's already had this, our way out of this as quickly as possible, so it has the economic impact. But the truth of the response is absolutely what we're doing. And we have little time to spare. Thank you.
John?
Thanks, Governor. Thanks, Amy. We've heard in the past few weeks about supply chain a lot. I think we are all keenly aware at this point how interconnected we are in the world, and how dependent we are on each other. To do the responsible things that the Governor and Amy have already outlined in our own personal lives, and the government is in terms of its importance in your lives. Governor and I today have touched every part of that supply chain in government. We've talked to local officials. We've talked to state officials. I just finished a conference call with Vice President Pence and several other folks talking about what they're trying to do to help in local government respond. One of the things that he urged is for the passage of the legislation that's pending in the Senate, because is part of the supply chain for all of us. It provides for unemployment benefits. It provides for direct benefits for people during the. And one thing that's crucial that the states will need, the things that Dr. Acton needs to do and minimize the challenges that we all face. The governor outlined earlier on today. And we get a lot of advice on what we should do, and we appreciate it. From all across the state. It is always that balance between acting quickly, trying to do what's right in the health interest, and being mindful of the impact on people and business and their daily lives. After the stay-at-home order came out yesterday, we heard from a lot of businesses. If I were to summarize two things, it's that they get it. They have to. They outline in the governor's executive order. If they are an essential business, they have to operate in a safe and healthy manner, and follow those guidelines, so that they are creating a safe atmosphere for people to come to work, because they are an important part of the supply chain, and other food and other things that we all need. And they've asked me, the businesses asked me, they said, look, to the challenge of creating a healthy work environment. But they need people who are part of that essential employment base to be there too, we appreciate all that everybody is doing to make sure that happens. We are that order stands ready to hold the state accountable for a healthy environment for you to work if you have to. And I want you to know that we are serious about it. Lastly, I will just want to say something in support of what the governor's actions are on making early, just like the pandemic. The earlier you make these decisions, the better off we're going to be in state government funding. Unfortunately, this is my third crisis that I've had to deal with as a public servant. Twice in the legislature, we dealt with 9/11, and then the financial crisis, and now the coronavirus pandemic. All of them unique challenges. Every one of them is different than the other. What happens with all of them is that state revenues go down. Remember, we have to balance the budget. We have to balance the budget. State revenues go down. Demand for health and human services, which have a cost to them, go up. We are doing the belt tightening very early on to help create the best possible long-term safety net that government can be there to help you. And that's why the governor's actions on this are so very important. And we ask that everybody, we know this is going to affect local governments too, that we all get ready for the long run, the essential safety net, services that people need. The earlier we prepare, the better off we'll be. And we're grateful for when the Ohio and together. We are all in this together. We are all in this together. And Team Ohio, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. We're going to win. Governor.
Thank you.
Governor.
We're ready now for questions. Before we do that, I'll just describe for our viewers at home. You can't see this. You can't see this. We are in the same room. A little different configuration today. As we try to spread as we should. But the news media is in the atrium. And those of you familiar with our Capitol know the atrium is a big, beautiful room, and so they're all spread out. So they have more opportunity to practice the distance. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm looking at. If you at home cannot see that.
Martinez with Spectrum News. I appreciate the distancing. A lot of us haven't showered in a while. My question today deals with child custody. With the stay-at-home order, we've gotten a lot of questions from viewers. How do they deal with shared custody, and how do they deal with children that are split between two parents?
Well, first of all, that's probably not advice. That people should get from the governor. But what we would hope is that because this is an emergency, both parties would take that into consideration and try to, as always, work for the best interest of that particular child. Nothing more important than that. If there is something that has to be resolved, obviously, the courts still function. Although that would be up to the local court. So again, we would hope that people would be able to work those things out. This is a crisis. We have to act like it's a crisis. Both sides have to give a little bit. We have to make sacrifices. Again, we would hope that would focus on that child or on those children.
Thank you.
This is Jackie Borchert from the Cincinnati Enquirer. Ohio is one of a few states that's not regularly reporting negative test results or pending tests. Why did the state health department stop providing this information last week and are there plans to report it again?
Amy.
Thank you, Jackie. We were doing the negative PUIs, if you remember. We weren't doing every test that was done. Honestly, at this point, there is sort of a free for all. Hospitals started drive-through testing, and they were able to run some. We don't have accurate numbers at this point of what's being done privately in a hospital. What's out at LabCorp or the other private companies, and we're only getting positive reported to us. That is a question that the hospital association, myself, and others are wrangling. We equally would like to know how many actually been tested in Ohio. We know that we're down to a few. Communities that are holding on to test kits and saving them for the really tough decision of something in a hospital, bad nursing home situation, conserving those. So we will make every bit of data available as we have it. The way this has played out with the private and public sector, it's just not something we have a handle on in our state yet.
Kevin Landers, WBNS 10 TV. We now have two deaths in Franklin County. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of information about those who unfortunately passed away. And also for you, Dr. Imagine for a moment that you're a single parent with kids at home. You may have an elderly parent to care for. You're an essential worker. You do all the right things. You wash your hands. Do social distancing. But every day you see the numbers go up and even the number of hospitalizations. This parent looks at you and says, I'm scared. You're not doing enough. I'm scared my kids are going to be affected I'm going to work. What do you say to that parent?
Thank you. I'm very, very sorry to hear about. As you know, I live here in Franklin County, and I don't have details on those. A lot of the information for you in the media will be quickest to get if you go to the local health department. They'll know more by the time it all reaches me here at the state level. And I know there are others pending. I'm formally announcing six, but I know there are others that have not yet. The information has not reached me. So these are times that are just as hard as you have described. I think. First of all we can do, from the very beginning, I say the Lieutenant Governor and Governor, and his team will say over and over again to the pundits out there with the exact formulas. We're trying to get things 80% right. We do everything we can, and that's all any of us can do. And what I want each and every one of you to do is take a look at your situation. We have to maximize as best we can what we have. When you're a worker, an essential worker, I think that's all things you need to think through. You might be in a situation, even though you're an essential worker, or your home situation is something that you have to weigh, and talk to your employer about, that puts you in a slightly different category. There will be people that their essential highest need might be taking care of something at home. And that will be the right choice to make. We'll all be making these choices. If you can be an essential worker, and you can show up, you're absolutely needed, and you're sacrificed during this time. It's nothing less than noble and patriotic. But we are all feeling these pulls, each and every one of us, myself included, with my family and with my life circumstances. And each of us, those equations are going to change day to day. They might change in a week from now. So I just want you to know again. You're not doing anything wrong when you're really torn about these things. This is how hard these decisions are, and the hard times we're living in.
Jim Oddie from WHIO TV Governor, this is a question for you. And I want to get some clarification on your state, and I'm thinking specifically about manufacturing, which is terribly important to us in the Miami Valley. I'm thinking of the Fuyao plant. I know you've been there recently. I looked at your order and trying to think, does this apply to our manufacturers, apply to our warehousing operations, but specifically for Fuyao, if they can they stay open? Can they stay open? Them or any other manufacturer? It's really tough to do social distancing when you're working at a factory. Can they stay open? And who tells them?
I'm going to let the Lieutenant Governor answer that. When I get the tough questions, I turn to him. John was very much involved with business to put this together. The thing I would say, Jim, about social distancing in manufacturing. Most of the companies that we have talked to have been able to do that. It's not perfect. Most of them have been able to adjust in some way, so they could actually do that. I think again, our request, and in the case of the order, is for them to actually do that, to actually make whatever adjustment they have to make to be able to keep that distance apart. There's so many other things that they can do as well. Wiping off surfaces, constant checking with that employee when that employee comes in, and making sure that employee is not sick. Talking to that employee, making sure that they have a liberal policy. If someone needs to go home, they need to go home. These are all things we are asking the companies to do, and that is actually in order. John, you want to add anything?
Thanks, Governor. There's a two-part test to this. First of all, are you part of the essential supply chain? The hard part of that answering it for us is to know the nature of what everybody does in their work. If they can read the order plainly, and there's something in the order that where they're supplying somebody that is part of the essential supply chain, then they can remain open. But they also have to follow the second part of the test, which is to provide a clean, healthy workplace. If they cannot both of those tests, then they should not be open.
Governor, this is Shane Stegmiller with Hannah News Service. Do you expect to delay the state filing deadline for taxes like the federal government did?
Yes, this would be up to the legislature, but I would think that we will. I would think that our goal would be to align those two together.
Also, do you expect to have to tap into the rainy day in order to address the issues in the state budget that you're looking to get ahead of that you announced today?
Well, I could give a flip answer that's raining. Look, this is the type crisis that Governor Kasich and the legislature intended when they started putting this money away. So we're going to be consulting with the state legislature about how to do that. But it's not spending the money. We also have to, as I indicated a few minutes ago, we've got to slow down the rate of spending. We're going to have to do that rather dramatically. This is going to be a very tough time. We know what's happening to the economy already. We know that's going to continue. We will come out of this. But we have a number certainly ahead of us that are going to be very, very tough months.
And then one last quick one. Do you not have a capital budget this year because of this crisis?
Well, we're not talking about capital. We'll talk to the legislature again. We'll talk to the leadership and see what is essential. But I think for all of us, we're down to what's essential. What we have to do. We have to do. As we look at this, as we look and go through this crisis, our focus is cut back on the spending. Many good things out there that are going to have to take a hit. Unfortunately, our focus has to be on getting us through this. So if there are things that we have to do with regard to the coronavirus, then we'll obviously have to do those. Have to cut back on spending overall.
Hi, Governor. Jeremy Pelzer, Cleveland.com. Obviously, there's no telling how long this pandemic's going to last. But what are your criteria for lifting the stay-at-home order or any of your other orders? What determines when these orders can be lifted?
Well, I'm going to let Dr. Acton answer that. Ultimately, that's going to be my decision. But it's going to be informed as we have every decision on how we save lives. Look, we do not want to keep these orders on longer than we have to. We want to move forward. We want to let everybody live their lives. We want this economy start coming back. I am very much aware of how much suffering is going on out there. People who've lost their jobs. I do not take that lightly. And it weighs on me. But we did what we had to protect life. We have to protect life. That is the most important thing that we can do. But away from this, just as we can. Now to Dr. Acton, Amy. You want to?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, Jeremy. I think we all. The governor said it so well. This is an unprecedented. It's an unprecedented disease. 2 times as infectious, 20 times as deadly. And for the countries that are further out as we are, the spread is much more extensive. So we're going to have even some unique things compared to any other country that has gone through this. And so I think the science is going to continue to evolve. I mean, we have the best minds in the world working on this to figure out exactly how we can withdraw this. Once we've gotten through that hospital surge, because there will be a surge, just a matter of how big. How do we withdraw safely? Because there are other facets to the disease that we'll be taking into account. So it's a complicated set of things that we'll learn. But you can imagine that the best minds in the world are looking at what's happening in other countries as they withdraw. And what we know, do that in the most responsible way possible. My goal for Ohio remains the same. We don't want to waste a single day that we have to be ahead of the curve. We don't want to be in a situation, Ohio, where we're in the middle of that storm and haven't had any chance to prepare. So I already have teams of people talking to the folks in the world who are asking those questions to try to see what we could do in Ohio as soon as possible. And I hope we are on the front edge of that as well. I hope those people wanting people try these strategies, will work with us. I'd like us to be the ones that implement those and learn from them as well. So thank you for asking.
Hello, it's Lou Ann Stoy, ABC 6 and Fox 28 Columbus. This one is for the governor. What guidance, if anything, is being given to police officers during this crisis? Our viewers have said that they want to know how stay-at-home is being enforced, both on a personal as well as a business level.
Well, we had a conference. Last night. The sheriffs had many of the sheriffs on a conference call. We talked to them about that. Within the next 24 hours, we'll have a conference call with chiefs of police, conference call this morning with some of the mayors. And this is kind of the guidance that I think I would give. These orders can be enforced by the local health department, by the local police, by the local sheriff. But, we're not looking to see arrests. We're not looking to see a lot of citations issued. What we're asking people to do and what we're now telling them to do is what we have been asking them to do. I would suspect that if there is a violation and the police are aware of that violation, that they would go and talk directly to the people involved or the person involved. I would assume that they would give that person a warning, and then they would have to make up their mind based on what that person did after that, how to react. But I know that local government is looking at this, mayors are looking at this, police are looking at this. We've now moved from asking to basically telling people this is what it is. It is a violation of the law if they violate it. But it's like anything else in the law. The law is an instructor. The law is a deterrent. And what you hope is that the law does not have to actually be applied very often. And that's what our hope will be. But it is what the law is today, and it shows that we have ratcheted this up, and it is quite serious. We would not have issued this if it wasn't a matter of life and death. I mean, this is a matter of life and death. So this is not just something that we made up and decided that this is what we want to impose on the people of the state of Ohio. It was with great reluctance that any governor would make an order such as this. But we did it, and we felt it was in the best interest of the people, and it was certainly something that was necessary to protect lives.
So potentially some citations or any kind of thing like that? Sure,
you could, absolutely. I mean, look, I can't, again, I don't know, individual police officers every day, even when there's no coronavirus, make decisions. And they make decisions about, how they enforce a law and what they need to do. And so this will be no different. They will make those decisions. But again, we would fully expect the police would be talking to that person, and I can't make up what the violation would be, but would talk to that person and say, hey, what's going on? And we would hope at that point the person would get it, and that activity would cease.
And for instance, a bar that's operating that should not be operating, could they potentially lose a liquor license if the Department of Health or others cite them?
Sure, absolutely. And that's, that is, there you have an administrative action that can take place. Would not necessarily even have to be, a criminal. That could be administratively by liquor control.
Might I add something to that, Governor? Just on behalf of the health departments out there, I know there are a lot of small local health departments, very small staffs. I am really begging the people of Ohio to do this on their own. I need my team focused on taking care of the sick and doing that detective work and tracing these things to keep us safe and healthy. I really don't need them having to worry about the order. I need us to do the right thing so that they can focus on the crisis at hand.
This is Luis Gill from the Ohio Latino TV, and thank you, Governor, for being proactive in your cabinet, for being proactive on this. Last night you were the second state to have this order, stay home. And the Hispanic community would like to have maybe a little bit more direct in terms of employees, employers, consequences if they feel that it should not be at work and they're being made, even with the employers taking, the distance, the social distance, they still feel that why is it direct if there is a way that they don't want to go to work because of their safety? Are there consequences if they're obligated to go to work or things like that?
Yes, there absolutely are consequences. And again, as the Lieutenant Governor said a moment ago, we fully expect companies that are allowed to work, that are allowed to be open, that are essential, they still obviously must follow what has been prescribed as far as safety. It's important for those workers. Those workers must feel that they are safe. To be safe, that means there's got to be distance. To be safe, that means that the other employees and every employee who comes in, there's got to be a determination that that person is not sick. To be safe, they have to be able to understand that that person gets sent home because they have an illness. And people who have been working around that person need to know about that. All those things are absolutely essential. And look, if they violate that, yes, they're certainly subject to the law.
Well, one of the main things in the Hispanic community is the construction part. So not being non-essentials in the construction part, are there some ramifications if they are obligated or where they don't feel specifically on that part of the industry?
Well, the rules apply to construction as it does to any other business.
Okay.
Just as much as it does to manufacturing or any other business.
Governor, the Hispanic community say gracias.
Good afternoon, Laura Bischoff, Dayton Daily News. Governor, I'm getting reports of quarantines inside of state prisons. I guess somebody told me that at Dayton Correctional, there's like 240 inmates with flu-like symptoms who've been quarantined. I understand from DRC there were 11 tests administered. 10 came back negative, 1 is pending for COVID. What assurances can you give to the 48,000 inmates, the 12,000 DRC workers and their families about steps to keep COVID out of the prison system? Because there's no social distancing in the prison.
I had a conference with the director this morning about that specific issue. We reviewed what was going on in the prison. What I can tell you is it's something that we are very focused on, and I can guarantee you the director has been preparing for this for some time, as soon as we knew this was coming. So there's a real focus on it. Like any other place where there are people are together, there is certainly a very, very significant risk. But testing will be done anytime that there is, as you can see, Lori just cited some numbers. Testing will go on in the prison when there is a reason for that testing to go on. And the director is certainly articulated to me, plans about how to deal with this. One of the things that she is doing and one of the things you worry about is new people coming in to the prison. And of course, every day new people are coming into the prison, or certainly every week new people are coming into the prison, usually from the county jails. But what the director has done, and she can give you more details, but what she has done is set out a system where that person goes into reception, and then they are there actually for a 5-week period of time. So what we don't want to do is somebody comes in from a jail and they actually, have the virus, and then they're introduced into the general population. So there's this, I'm not giving her system that she's outlined quite justice, but that's basically how it has been outlined. That's what she's doing.
As a quick follow-up, have you seen the census or the head counts in the jails and the prisons? Have they gone down at all in the last 2 weeks?
What's gone up is the number of people coming to the state prison system. Those numbers are up, and we can get those for you. And that's, again, an alarming fact, and we are concerned about that.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Andrew Welsh-Huggins with the Associated Press. We're already seeing in Washington wrangling and delays over the economic stimulus package, and with the legislature scheduled to meet this week, I was wondering, can you talk about your conversations with leadership in terms of the urgency of getting something done this week? The wish list is huge. You've mentioned a couple things, and we've got the elections, we've got the schools, we've got utilities. Can you talk about what you're talking about in terms of accomplishing this as soon as possible in Ohio?
Well, I certainly don't have to tell Republican or Democrat leaders that this is a crisis. They all know that. We've had conversations. So I think they share my sense of urgency. I know they share my sense of urgency. And I'm sure that they're going to move this week. That's exactly what they indicated they were going to do. So I have great confidence in this legislature. We've worked very well for the last year during this crisis. I've had a lot of communication from members of the General Assembly, which I appreciate very, very much. I've always said that no one knows your district better than you do. No one knows the district better than the state senator or the state representative, and we've really relied on them to tell us what is going on. And so they like every other Ohio citizen, they get it. They understand it. They know there's a sense of urgency. So we'll get some things done this week.
And just as a follow-up, do you have a top 5 list that you could give us yet in terms of what you do want them to get done?
No, I mean we've shared that with them. I'm not going to go into it. I mean, obviously, there's a number of things that we want done. I mean, most of this is frankly to giving us the flexibility that we need to deal with the crisis, and we've had discussions with the leadership in regard to that. So it's different ways that we can get things done as we deal with this crisis every single day.
Thanks, Governor.
Eric Halpern, NBC4. This question is for Dr. Acton. Last week, I think we heard that the hospitals were at about 75% and they could handle maybe 25% more. Where are they at now? What can and can't they handle at this point?
They're at about the same capacity level that they were at. It is flu season as well, as they were sharing. You know, it's still a very high usage time for our hospitals. But we are beginning to put together some numbers for the press and the media to show you more about that capacity. They are working very hard. Again, we're not doing elective surgeries now. We are discharging people that might be ready to go and not be there. They're gearing up full bore right now. And so I'd really like to have them with me as part of explaining all of those moves to you. But I can say this, we're also watching, we see our flu numbers tracking down in Ohio, but in some of our ED emergency visits, we're seeing influenza-like illness going up. So these influenza-like illnesses, which I think could potentially be markers for COVID-19, it's why it's so important. I really want anyone in primary care that can be treating people at home and keeping them at home with any symptoms that look anything like flu, but that they are, safe enough to be at home and ride it out. We need to do that because pretty soon we're exposing what could be coronavirus into the hospital and going to emergency rooms. So we really want to save that capacity for the very sickest, and that way, and letting folks know before they come in the emergency room so that the folks can wear the right gear. So I think we're seeing a masking of what has looked like flu in the past, but that is coronavirus now.
Thank you.
Jim Province with the Toledo Blade. A question for the governor. You have deployed the Ohio National Guard on a very limited basis so far. Do you anticipate that mission would get broader?
Well, I think the mission will get broader in the sense they'll be doing more things. They'll be doing more things in regard to this corona crisis. We have very talented people with a lot of great skills. So, we basically are responding to what the medical community is asking for and we will continue to do that. And if that skill set lies with the National Guard, we certainly will use the National Guard. Now, it's been made very clear to us by many people that while we have people with medical skills in the National Guard, if we use them for the Guard and pull them out of the civilian side, it's probably not a net plus. We're taking from here to put it over here. So we're cognizant of that as we make these decisions.
Do you anticipate any role in terms of enforcement with the National Guard?
I do not anticipate any role of enforcement as far as my orders from yesterday. No, that would not be within the scope of the National Guard. That would be within the scope of the local police, local sheriff, and the local health department, but that would not be the Guard.
Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon, Governor. Randy Ludlow with the Columbus Dispatch. I'd like to ask, regarding your pending state budget cuts, what would be exempt in what you plan? Public schools? Public assistance? Is there anything that's off the table as far as potential cuts?
Well, I think it's too early to talk about that. I mean, what we have done is ask the members of the cabinet to take a look at where cuts could take place. Obviously, cuts that there's some departments that we're going to see an increase in spending, and that Medicaid, for example, the number of people on Medicaid is certainly going to go up. This is just the nature of when you're in economy is contracting, and that is what has happened. So some of this, is certainly probably going to go the other way. But as far as what the priorities are, this is something that, again, we need to look at the legislature, talk with the members of the legislature, leadership of both parties, as far as where that's going to go.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Andy Chow, Ohio Public Radio and Television, State House News Bureau. Governor, once the order went out yesterday, I'm sure a lot of people here heard a lot of what-if scenarios. So lots of people in the state with very specific circumstances and scenarios. What advice do you give people who maybe after the order was announced are still unclear whether they should go to the work, whether they should continue to operate their business? Is there an entity on the local level that people can be reaching out to for some advice on that level?
Well, they can reach out certainly to the local health department, but I think that, again, they need to look at the document. They need to see whether they think they fall within it. If they think they fall within an exception, which classifies them as an essential business, I would move ahead. Now, once they do that, somebody may disagree with that, and they may be wrong about that, but they're probably going to have a pretty good idea from reading this document whether they are included or not included. And again, when they stay open, they really need to look at that part of it, that part of the order, which has to do with how they keep their employees safe. I mean, that would be what I would point them to is take a look at that, make sure you're following everything that you can. And I would tell you that the Lieutenant Governor and myself both are getting a lot of calls from a lot of businesses, and they're kind of showing us what they're doing, and they're saying, this is what we're doing. We're taking this very, very seriously. So I would really focus on that. But I think people, if they read it, they're going to have a sense of where they fall. John, you want to add anything to that?
No, I would just add this, that businesses need to read the order, use their common sense about how you would interpret that. Put yourself in the shoe. If somebody called and asked and said, hey, this business is operating and it's not an essential business, and the health department showed up, would you have a good excuse? Would you have a rationale that you could point to in that order that says, yes, this is under this provision, this is how we're staying open, and please come in and inspect my workplace and I'll show you that we're doing all the things that are required. That's my advice, is that you have to look at the order, you have to know what it is, that your rationale is for why you're an essential business, and you have to be able to prove that you're following all the safety guidelines.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Governor, this question is for you again, Jim Oddie from WHIO-TV. And a follow-up to Andy's question, if I'm on the line in my local plant, manufacturing or a warehouse operation, Tenneco, any business across the state, but I see a violation, I'm too close to those people who are on the line with me, who do I call? Is that the health department? Do I call 911, the police department? Who do I reach out to?
Well, don't call 911. That's, I talked with one of our mayors today, and the mayor said they're getting 911 calls. So that would not be good. We want to keep 911 for the emergencies. I mean, the people they can reach out to certainly is to the local health department to get some guidance.
Governor, if I could add something to that. I would also suggest that they talk to their employer. Go to your employer and say, hey, this situation, we don't believe it's safe. We would like you to fix this situation. And I think most times employers and employees will work these things out successfully. And if they do not, then you're able to contact your local health department for enforcement.
Governor, if I could add, I think it's really important with this order that the employer take charge of the order. I think that is a discussion, definitely reading the language of the order, working with your attorney if you need to help interpret that will go a long way. For employees, there's also HR, and HR officers could be really helpful in a lot of this. I think similarly to not putting the pressure on the 911 system, I think people will be very hard pressed to have a local health department solving all this. This really is something for employers to understand if they are essential businesses, and it's not an exact call, so it's something you need to interpret with the best guidance you can, and then help your employees do that. That will be probably the most efficient way in these very hard and challenging and fast-paced times of this crisis. Thank you.
This is for the Lieutenant Governor. Stoya again, ABC 6. Mr. Husted, could you talk about unemployment numbers? Who has filed for unemployment? And we're hearing from viewers that they can't get through on the phone lines, they can't get through on the website. What can you tell them about what, if anything, can be done on that?
Yeah, first of all, we've been asked by the U.S. Department of Labor not to release our numbers on unemployment, so we're following that guidance. And secondly, there was an issue this morning with the website and to some extent the call center on unemployment benefits. We have put our best tech team on this to get this up and running. As you might imagine, the demand, this system was not built for a crisis. It was built to take care of what we could expect on a regular or even robust basis, but what we're experiencing now is frankly unprecedented. And so the team is working to do that. We ask for people to be patient, know that we understand the frustration that can come with this, and I'm hopeful that it will be more functional, more dependable here in the coming days, but frankly, it should be up and running now. We hopefully addressed this issue this morning. It's there, but if not, we ask your patience, know that we understand what's the situation that you're in and how we have an obligation to get our system to be up and running and serving you.
Kevin Landers, WBNS. To the governor, the president has extended the federal tax deadline to July 15th. Are you encouraging the state to follow suit? And for Dr. Acton, are you still a bit frustrated that test results aren't coming back as quickly as some people had hoped? We're still getting emails from people who are saying they've waited a week and still have not heard the results. Thank you.
I'll go first. The answer is yes.
Frustrated would be the polite word. It's very frustrating, and that's why I can really empathize with the providers out there, hospitals themselves, and people at home. This is the truth of the situation in which we find ourselves. It's very frustrating. I also want to echo what the Lieutenant Governor said. I know our coronavirus.ohio.gov, still a very trustworthy place to go. Yesterday, in less than a minute, we had over 1 million hits to that website. we've been building capacity left and right for our response as quickly as we can. Again, these are just such unprecedented times, and so I so appreciate everyone's patience. Folks, when you talk about essential workers, we set up a whole phone system where people can even work from home to answer your questions, and we get information to them as quickly as possible. 99.9% of the time, they got the right answer at the right time, and sometimes they don't know yet because business changes literally in an hour, and they still have not yet been told. We really appreciate your grace during all of this, and to all the people who I am not writing back or responding right now. I have teams of people digging through things, but this was really an unprecedented time, and thank you for your grace and patience, and we are giving you everything we can, again, as fast as we can and as soon as we know it.
Randy Ludlow with the Dispatch. Question for Dr. Acton, if I may. There still seems to be confusion over what is going on with abortion clinics. Under your order on non-essential surgeries, are abortions considered essential, non-essential, or one or the other, and in which cases?
We have been advised by our lawyer that the lawyer is supposed to be dealing with this, that is the Attorney General. So the order went out, and the Attorney General now is handling that. So you need to talk to the Attorney General on that.
So the state can...
The order that was put out was in regard to elective surgeries, and there was criteria laid out in that order. So this is now being handled by the Attorney General and going back and forth with the lawyers for the abortion clinic, and I've not checked with the Attorney General today, so I don't know what has occurred today. And again, we're not going to comment something that is going back and forth with the lawyers at this point. The order is what it is. It's public. Everybody can look at it.
Okay, but the state cannot clarify whether it considers an elective abortion to be non-essential surgery?
Again, you have to go back and look at the fact. Everything is fact specific, and you have to look at the facts for any. I would point out that when that order went out to the abortion clinics, there was also, when the letter went out from the Attorney General to the abortion clinics, 3 abortion clinics, I believe, it also went out to another physician's office where there was reports that they were doing elective surgery. So again, elective surgery is not permitted. There's criteria in there, as I recall, 4. I don't have it in front of me. But again, then it's fact specific whether they're violating it or not.
Thank you, Governor.
Farhan Jaita with Delaware TV. This question is for Dr. Atkins. How is the Ohio Health Department is communicating with the non-speaking older immigrants, that's state of Ohio residents?
Yes, thank you. And that question was asked a few days ago as well. So we are putting materials out in various languages as quickly as we can. Very early on in the process, we actually engaged a translation service, and we're also working with colleagues and folks who are very tied into some of our communities like the Bhutanese, Nepali, and Somalian, and we are making those materials as quickly as we can. One of the struggles we've had, we do have interpreters, and if you do call, can I please do say to communities, if you know someone who needs help but needs it translated, leave a message, help them leave a message of the number. All we need is the phone number to call, and we will call back. We have to actually access those translators, but we will call you back if a number can be left. But then in terms of written materials as well. But that's not all. A lot of our local health departments are reaching out and working with communities specific. You know, a lot of public health is done at the local level, 113 local health departments. So they're working to the nuances in that community with the community leaders of nonprofits that work with immigrant communities. It's really important, and I need everyone's help to do this, to get the message out to everyone, whether you lead a church or a synagogue or a mosque, or you are a member of a nonprofit in a community that you feel is not being reached by these messages. Please help me to get the messages out that we have the best facts coronavirus.ohio.gov, but help me to translate it, because even with translators, not everyone will call that call center, and we need to proactively push these messages out to communities. And at the same time, our nonprofit community and philanthropy community are working on wraparound services that are unique to vulnerable populations, which range widely by community. So we can't do any of this alone. We really need your help, and help us to get those messages out. Thank you.
Hi, Jackie Borchard again from the Cincinnati Enquirer. Are hospitals changing guidelines about how healthcare workers will handle masks, especially N95s? And do we know how many businesses are equipped to make equipment, tests, masks, other types of equipment that we need?
Yes, the hospitals have for a while now been on conservation and have very strict guidelines, and there are unique things happening. I was told, and I have it written down here, but one hospital, for instance, had started a practice of moving the IV machines, the IV drips, outside the door of the room, so that people didn't have to gown up and go in to make the adjustments. And there are a lot of really creative things happening in our hospitals, some of which they've planned for, and some new ingenuity that is happening, as I just mentioned. We've had a number of businesses. I personally don't have that information on me, but we have a whole strike team at the Emergency Operating System that is working, and I'll make note of that and try to get you more stories of what our local businesses are doing to be innovative. One thing that's been top of mind for me is Battelle is working on a method, and is working closely with our labs, actually, to sterilize some of the existing equipment using a steam method that will actually allow us to reuse some equipment. So there's ingenuity. It's happening in our state. It's happening around the country. And then, I know that there's a lot of work being done to bring more to our states. So thank you.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing to that, I want to thank the businesses who are contacting us and who are literally changing, in some cases, things they do on a daily basis to help us try to meet demand, whether it's for hand sanitizer or masks. The response has been terrific, and we really appreciate it.
Hi, Laura Bischoff, Dayton Daily News again. This is for Dr. Acton. I know that there's kind of a cluster of cases in a nursing home in Miami County.
Yes.
Can you describe what steps can be taken to kind of stamp out those kind of clusters as they erupt in really highly vulnerable populations?
Thank you. So, we're learning a lot of lessons from what's been happening around the world, as well as what happened in Washington State, and we've talked very closely with them. The CDC has put out some guidelines. One of the things that really stands out to me looking at our nursing homes is one of our vulnerable points is that we have a lot of people, from respiratory therapists to physical activity to including like doctors who do wound care, that actually, as part of their job, move between multiple facilities. So a lot of the facilities, the industry itself has partnered with our medical and epi teams to come up with the best criteria and recommendations we can make for each situation. Each facility is unique, and so while we have sort of an overall strategy based on the CDC guidelines, we're really working closely and multiple time-of-day calls with each facility to talk through their strategy. Some of it is the actual quarantining of residents within from healthy folks. Sometimes the spread is so ubiquitous, you just assume it is there, and you treat with precautions for the whole. There are and may be situations where we actually think it's better to move people, but what we learned from Washington was sometimes that was more dangerous for the patient and for the spread than actually making amendments to treat within the facility. So there's a lot being done with staffing also on how they operate. Some staff are themselves working with a select group of folks. So it varies. I'd love to share some of that guidance with you. We have a team that has sort of put together some rubrics. Now being that I'm running the whole thing, I think there are folks who could give you a lot more details that might be more helpful. But I can tell you that we're learning from the best, and we're partnering very closely with each facility. With a lot of the professional organizations that work with nursing homes, they've stepped up to the T, and everyone is really trying to row in the same direction. And nursing homes are a step away from a hospital, and so all of it's sort of an interconnected system.
And a quick follow-up, is there any indication of where we are on the curve? I know I ask that pretty regularly.
On our sharp way up, unfortunately, and I know you feel the heaviness of my voice saying this. We're still at the very tip of the beginning of this, and that's why we are using every single day. We go to sleep. The governor said something today, like, the daylight is scarce. I forget how you said it, sir, but you were just like, I'm running out of daylight hours here, folks. I mean, we are moving every mountain, everything, really 24/7. I was on conference calls with whole industries into the late evening. I wake up at 4 and we begin again to maximize our response in Ohio.
Thank you.
Dr. Acton, Lou Ann Stoya, ABC6. I thought I heard you say earlier that you were thinking about using retired medical people to come into action and medical students. Could you talk a little bit more about what that strategy looks like? Are you looking for volunteers? Are you drafting people? Tell us what you have in mind.
Well, I've tasked one of my deputy directors to create a structure by which one thing we need are some extra folks to do some of the contact tracing. As you can imagine, one person, even mentioned in the prisons, a lot of those folks are probably just quarantining. They don't have the disease, but maybe they were exposed to someone. Well, one person becomes 100 person, becomes 1,000 people. And so we have a lot of talented medical students and others who are about to graduate, and we're actually creating sort of a virtual quick onboarding of some basic epi skills. So we'll be using people and be making disease detectives out of the willing to help us in this work where they can do some of the lower triage things alongside our team of really expert professionals and epidemic intelligence service officers and that team. There is the medical corps that can be commissioned in states. That is being looked at by our team. And we do, I should note that some of retired folks are in a high-risk group. So I don't necessarily want to put their talent in physical being on the front line, but now we have clinicians who are on hotlines to be able to answer questions. And so we're building and building and building staffing capacity and talent. And I will say, and again, it's my thanks to the business community, I've had some major offers from major companies, some of our more leading edge tech companies who are willing to give their brain trust to us to help us with some of our modeling. Our university professors and folks are offering up their skills. And then my job is to build the structure to take advantage of that wealth of opportunity. That structure never existed before because we've never seen something like this before. So we are building structures by which to best use these volunteers. So stay tuned. We'll be very loud about those asks once we're ready.
This will be the last question of the day. Farhan Jaita with Delmar TV. Will the shutdown continue until effective vaccine is found?
So this is a rare disease in that we have no immunity as people and there is no treatment yet. We know that the vaccine will take a year to a year and a half, but there are other promising treatments that could come along sooner and therefore change that trajectory. I do not believe what we need to do right now in the acuity of this situation. Acuity means this urgent, sudden onset and spread. What we do right now, which is absolutely what we must do, complete mitigation, non-pharmacologic interventions maximized, that will be a period of time. But then we will be working on the suppression stage and other strategies. So I cannot tell you an exact date of how long this will last. I can tell you that we'll be moving out of it as quickly as possible based on the science available. So we won't be living the way we are today and the way we're asking for you, please, Ohioans, to maximize the stop of spread by staying home. This is for a briefer period of time, and then we will walk you through the strategies and we will walk out of this together in a different way, and all that will happen most likely before we'll ever have a vaccine. Thank you.
Well, in conclusion, let me just observe that one of the good things, there are a lot of good things that are occurring as people come together. People are reconnecting. My son, Mark, one of his professors at Ohio State University reached out to him, and she shared that at her church, the minister often started his benediction, urging people to, and I quote, have courage and hold on to what is good. Have courage and hold on to what is good. And so that's my wish for all of you today and all of us to have courage. Let's hold on to what is good. We have a lot to hold on to. We have a lot that is good in Ohio. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
You've been listening to Governor Mike DeWine and his team discuss the latest developments in COVID-19 here in the state of Ohio. It began right around 2:30, lasted about 90 minutes. Let's run through some of the biggest developments. Adam Slinger here at the ABC 6 News studios. For the first time, we now have 2 deaths here in central Ohio from COVID-19, both in Franklin County. One is an 84-year-old woman. The other is, it's kind of confusing. It's an 85-year-old man who did live here in Franklin County, but became sick and passed away in another state. But because he was a resident of Franklin County, his death counts here in Franklin County. Statewide, we now have 442 cases. That's an increase of 26% in just the past 24 hours. 104 people in the hospital, up 25% in the past 24 hours, and a total of 6 deaths in the state from COVID-19. A couple of developments during that news conference. The city of Whitehall now saying that they will have a curfew for all non-essential activities. That curfew begins at midnight tonight and lasts until 6 in the morning. We've also learned that the Sonic Temple Music Festival at Moffrey Stadium has now been canceled. Again, Sonic Temple at Moffrey Stadium canceled. Governor Mike DeWine issuing some new orders today as well. Let's run through those. He has ordered that all hiring be frozen, be stopped right now with all state government offices, with the exception of those positions that might help fight COVID-19. He's also freezing all travel in the state for state employees. He's also put a freeze on all new contract services with the state. And in about 5 minutes here, he's going to meet with his cabinet. He's going to ask all of his cabinet members to come up with ways to cut their budget. He said some departments might need to cut up to 20% of their budget. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to have a full report tonight here on ABC 6 News at 5, and our website and the ABC 6 News app being updated 24/7. The website, abc6onyourside.com. We'll see you at 5.